the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by DonorBox.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofit Podcast, your go-to resource for all things nonprofit. I'm Britt, the nonprofit strategist and coach at DonorBox, and we're here each week with practical actions you can use today to increase donations and take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. I am so excited, joined by my colleague Amy Champagne, a real sales and fundraising powerhouse at DonorBox and a friend of the podcast. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Britt. I'm so excited to chat.
Well, today we're unpacking something very exciting, which was our recent adventure at the 2024 NTEN Nonprofit Tech Conference in Portland, Oregon. Amy, I bet you'll agree we learned so much, and we can't wait to share all of the insights with our listeners today. You know, Amy, I know you've been to your fair share of nonprofit conferences, and you're no stranger to them. What would you say really makes NTEN stand out from the rest, in your opinion?
Yeah, I would say at NTEN, there was a diverse set of people all coming together with a shared passion for using tech to create positive change. What really stuck out to me was how many collaboration opportunities there were created by the conference. Between the breakfasts at the actual conference, tables designated for a specific group and interests, and afternoon snacks, the opportunity to mingle with attendees was boundless.
Yeah, I would have to agree, Amy. You know, a lot of these conferences, we can sometimes feel exhausted, right? We're not energized. Sometimes we don't feel like we've gained much. But NTEN, it was a real game changer. We took so many valuable insights to the point where it can almost feel overwhelming to process it all, which is so exciting. And today, I want to really ensure that our listeners in this short window really kind of take the depth of what we've learned. And I think it would be helpful to really reduce it down to 4 really key takeaways. One of the first topics that was kind of recurring in a lot of these sessions was this really hyper focus on data management. So for all nonprofits tuning in, essentially it's really about how does your nonprofit handle your internal and your external data? How do you gather? How do you store? How do you access? Really, it's all about how do you ensure your data is secure? And, you know, we all know this. Many of our nonprofits, we struggle with data management. That can look like for a variety of reasons. We lack limited financial resources that make it really hard to invest in the robust data systems that we need to manage it all, right? We might lack the in-house knowledge, the trained experts that are really big data security people, right? And frankly, not every nonprofit has the time to kind of deal with these regulations like GDPR and HIPAA, and it can feel so overwhelming. But I think the key takeaway from the sessions that I did join is data management and privacy. It should be a priority, because neglecting it, if we put it on the back burner, it can really lead to data breaches. It can lead to legal issues, and it can really damage our nonprofits' reputations. And that really is a challenge that we cannot afford to ignore.
Yeah, exactly, Britt. You know, with donor trust as an all-time low for nonprofits, it's critical that we are safeguarding our data and letting donors know that. I attended a session hosted by Roundtable Tech and Foundation House, and they really broke down some practical strategies that could seriously help out nonprofits dealing with these tough challenges. The first step is just recognizing there's an issue and understanding what exactly is at stake. That might mean getting in-house or contracted help to do a full-on data audit, chatting with key stakeholders in your organization, and digging into how your nonprofit collects data to spot any vulnerabilities. Once you've got a handle on that piece, you can establish clear rules for how you handle different categories of data, whether it's restricted, confidential or public data. Of course, make sure everyone knows the drill for handling, sharing, and getting rid of data. And don't forget about regular training. It's all about transparency, especially when it comes to your donors. They want to know what's happening with their data. So keeping things clear on your website, donation forms, and wherever else you engage with your community is crucial. When donors see you're using tech responsibly, it builds trust. And hey, showing them exactly where their donations are going, like saying your $10 donation provides 2 meals for someone in need, really hits home with them. On DonorBox, organizations can both list text and images next to suggested donation amounts, really helping out with that transparency.
Yeah, I really love all of that, Amy. It really is thinking about all of the small ways to bring your supporters along the journey and establishing that trust throughout. And I think it ties really well into the second key takeaway, which really kind of goes hand in hand with data management. And that is kind of all the buzz around automation and AI. I love the fact that nonprofits, there's so many stigmas about how we operate in our sector in general, but we are ahead of the game. We are adopting these really cool AI tools, similar to the trends that we're seeing of our private sector friends, right? I think that's remarkable. And we know that these tools can really help us work better. They can help us connect more deeply with the people we help. But one key thing in mind, which is what I took away from a session by Beth Cantor and Philip Dang, is that we need to use AI responsibly. What that means is anytime we use any type of AI tool, always ethics should be right front and center. That means, do these tools align with our nonprofit's strategic vision, our values, and of course, the needs of the people we serve front and center?
Absolutely. Best point about AI's power and challenges rings true for nonprofits. The big lesson here, let's remember tech is meant to be a tool for humans to use, not the other way around. Here's some quick advice inspired by Beth's insights. Find where AI fits best into your daily operations. Look for areas where AI can help, like tailoring messages for fundraising or automating donor reports. Be transparent. Keep your team in the loop about AI use. Open communication, build ethical guidelines. And start small. Begin with pilot AI projects instead of diving into big integrations. Testing and adjusting as you go always makes for a smoother ride. And circling back to the core message Britt and I mentioned earlier, always prioritize ethics throughout this journey. Make sure AI is a tool helping you help those you're serving. At DonorBox, we've recently launched the ability for nonprofits to easily create graphs and reports by using AI. Type in a question such as, which payment methods are my donors paying with? And then you'll be able to see both the list and different graphs, saving you tedious admin time and still providing transparency for both your key stakeholders and your community.
I love it, Amy. Love it so much. I think as a way to wrap up with a final takeaway, which really talks about this kind of humanistic approach to everything we do in the nonprofit world, there was one hitting home trend in some of the sessions, which was centered around community-centric fundraising. I know it was a hot topic at NTEN and really kind of mirrors a lot of what we're seeing here in terms of fundraising, especially for those of us who are fundraisers in the Pacific Northwest. Amy, what do you think about diving into this kind of hot button topic?
Hey, I'm ready for it.
Let's do it. I would say something excited that came out from one of the sessions was really brought to light by Michelle Shireen Muri from Ethical Rainmaker and her colleague Rob Dicker from a nonprofit called Save Horizon. And they kind of introduced this really cool, I wouldn't say necessarily new, but a fresh take on how we fundraise, right? And what that really looks like is building genuine connections within our communities rather than just focusing on individual donors. It's really about prioritizing equity and justice and making sure that everyone's voice is heard, especially those from marginalized groups. And, hold on. Let's not freak out. This doesn't mean throwing out everything we know about donor-centric fundraising. This has been kind of our long go-to and in terms of how we fundraise. But it really kind of challenges us to maybe reflect and think that, hey, maybe one size of fundraising in terms of methodologies and ethos, it may not fit every nonprofit. And so we really need to get creative and be open-minded, especially when it comes to trying to confront these really big systemic issues globally. And, some of you listening in might say, well, hey, Britt, this is very theoretical. It's very conceptual. How do we put this into practice? And so to kind of make this shift in terms of giving something concrete for everyone, a few things that I love that Michelle offered is let's start by looking at diversifying our leadership teams to include individuals with diverse lived experience, listening to input from everyone involved. And, one amazing thing that I witnessed at NTEN in one of the sessions was think about hosting quarterly community-centric focus groups. I saw individuals with disabilities actively participating in the decision-making process, really kind of guiding the design and development of one nonprofit's programs at NTEN. Not only were these individuals included in leading in the design of that program process, but they were also compensated for their time. That is one way to ensure that everyone is feeling included and welcome in your mission. Another thing to consider is changing the way we communicate with our donors in terms of the language and messaging. Small but impactful changes in our donor communications, it can really look like, shifting from we're grateful for your donation to thanks to supporters like you, our community is thriving. Really kind of making small changes in the words that you're using. And finally, what I really loved from one other session falling under this umbrella of community-centric fundraising was rethinking our annual fundraising events. We all love our traditional galas and live auctions and raise of paddles, but kind of reinventing the experiences that we're offering to be more inclusive. We really want to tap into a broader base of supporters who equally want to give. That might look like choosing more accessible venues, scheduling events at times that work for everyone, dropping the black tie attire where people feel more comfortable and something more casual, rethinking how you price your tickets, offering diverse food, tapping into your local restaurants, and weaving in those elements of your mission, and using inclusive language to make sure that your event program really amplifies those voices from the communities you're serving. So that was a great takeaway. These may seem like small steps, but they really create an environment where everyone feels valued and included.
It's really exciting to see these positive changes happening in the nonprofit space. It also has me thinking about the brilliant leaders we met at the conference. They're making a big impact in their field and inspiring others to work towards a more inclusive and ethical digital future. I'd love for us to give a shout out to two thought leaders who might inspire our listeners on the podcast. I'd like to start off with Amber Case, who is known for her groundbreaking work on calm technology. So much of the tech we use every day can feel overwhelming and intrusive, but it doesn't have to be that way. As someone who has loved ones with sensory processing issues and neurodivergence, I appreciate her advocacy for prioritizing human well-being in our ever-increasingly digital world. Britt, is there anyone who resonated with you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amy. Sabrina Hersey Issa, she was a keynote speaker at NTEN. her story really struck a chord with me. She is a founder of a media company called Be Bold Media, and she shared a story that really hit home, kind of talking about the barriers that many Americans, we often kind of take for granted. She talked about helping her grandmother, who was a new American citizen, vote in the 2014 election. And, she was frank. She said it was tough because her grandma didn't speak English. She was determined to vote, but on election day, there was no translator. The technologies in place were not really inclusive. They were really kind of sidelining many voices that wanted to be there and wanted to show up to vote. And, her story really made me realize how important advocacy is and ensuring that all of the technologies we're creating, they really keep dignity in mind, and they include voices that we often forget. I just absolutely love Sabrina. She is a powerhouse and a force to be reckoned with. It is so amazing to see all of these thought leaders, particularly women in tech. They're making a real impact in the world, Amy. I am so inspired. And before we wrap up, just wanted to do a quick recap of some of the key takeaways that we just talked about at NTEN. For all you nonprofits out there, one is data management. It's not about gathering data, but also about how you handle it responsibly. Of course, keep that thread of donor trust in there and comply with regulations. It might seem daunting, but start small and don't be afraid to seek help when needed. It can make all the difference. The other takeaway, AI and automation, they are your friends. They can really revolutionize your nonprofit. They are amazing, cost-effective, and accessible. Many of them are free, but let's not forget the importance of the human touch. Amy, do you want to take it away with the last key takeaway?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that our organizations are always open to evolving and or adopting new fundraising methodologies. One that might include community-centric fundraising. It's all about keeping the firsthand voices of those we're collaborating with and serving at the forefront.
Gosh, that brings us to the end of our NTEN adventure. We've covered so much. There is still so much to learn. Before we wrap up, I am pretty sure, Amy, we have a couple of listeners that might have this question, and this might be on their minds. How can we get the benefits of conferences like NTEN when our nonprofit simply can't afford it? We can't afford to be there. Do you have any great takeaways or final tips to share with our listeners?
Yeah, there are so many cost-effective resources out there. I know that at NTEN, organizations had the opportunity to attend virtually, which really made this a pretty inexpensive way to still get that knowledge from those sessions. Additionally, I always recommend checking out DonorBox's YouTube channel. We have a lot of great episodes. I know last week we covered volunteer management, so there's always really helpful tools on our YouTube. We also, of course, have this podcast, the nonprofit podcast. And then DonorBox also frequently hosts webinars where we bring in leaders in the nonprofit industry. Those are all free resources that anybody can take advantage of.
That's fabulous. Well, thanks, Amy, for sharing. I'm sure many of those listening really appreciated that. Whew, that felt productive. I just wanted to thank you, Amy, for joining me today. Sometimes we're working so hard at DonorBox. We don't always get the opportunity to collaborate so close together. I had so much fun being your co-pilot at NTEN. I'm hoping we can do these conferences more. So thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thanks for bringing me on, Britt. It was such a pleasure. And to our listeners, just remember, technology is here to help you help others.
Indeed it is. Until next time, take care. Thank you for tuning in to the Nonprofit Podcast today. I hope you feel empowered to make a small change for a brighter tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the download button and leave us a review on your podcast app or give us a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Your feedback helps others discover us. Remember, you're here to make a difference, and we are here to provide you with the tools and resources to support you. Until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is DonorBox, helping you help others.